Welcome to the Wednesday wind down with Dan and friends. And no friends today, it's just me. The subject matter lends itself better to not having a guest on. So today I'm taking a look at backpacking gear on a budget. And let's ask, I think it's always it's a good idea to ask why we want to do this. Oh, you know what? This is about backpacking gear and beer. So we're supposed to talk about backpacking gear, which I can't do because of COVID, and drink beer with my friends. So tonight, I've got Belching Beaver's Peanut Butter Stout. Way better on tap, but it's really good, nice and rich. So if you're a stout person, give it a shot. Belching Beaver, locally in Vista. Go see him. Okay. Come back to the why. So why do I think it's important to talk about backpacking gear on a budget? Last week, Kit and I alluded to how many thousands of dollars we might each own or that we've turned through on backpacking gear. And it can be an expensive hobby, but it doesn't have to be. And there's some trade-offs there. So it could be that you're just poor, right? You just don't, you're a starving student, or you just don't have the income to support an expensive habit. That's one reason. Maybe you're new to the activity, to the sport, right? You're just starting on and like, I don't have a big chunk of money to spend on this and I need to be wise about it. Maybe you got invited on a trip. So I'm active, I'm outdoor, I'm hiking, and somebody says, hey, Dan, I got an opportunity to go to Mount Whitney. We got an opportunity to go to Yosemite. Come on along. Wow, what am I going to do? Or maybe you're taking a backpacking class or a backpacking group. So as I was kind of working through this, I realized that this is going to be slightly different, right? So the people that normally tune in probably aren't going to this isn't going to be quite as valuable for you. This is probably going to be way more valuable for people that maybe later on take a WBC and they find this on YouTube. So I think we'll probably get more value out of this for people on YouTube later on. But hey, we're talking backpacking gear, so that's how bad can it be? So there's a couple of different ways that you can put your hands on gear. And the first one, the one that we always think about, is go and buy gear, right? So you're going to go grab your credit card and head on over to REI or your other outfitter and just lay out a bunch of money. And over the years of me going in to get my one or two things from the outfitter and the REI, I kind of listen into the conversations that the person is having with them. I was like, oh, yeah, maybe you don't need to spend that much money. And, I always cut myself off and don't allow myself to interrupt that conversation and just let it be, because they walked into the doors and they know that they're going to be spending some money. But that is kind of an issue, right? Is how are you going to put your hands on that stuff? Dave brought up just a really good point. Support smaller companies too. So I just found an Adventure 16 certificate for a discount for like $20 off. I'm like, oh, they're out of business now, so that's not going to work. But Nomad Ventures is another local one, and so we definitely want to support smaller organizations as well. So for some of the large outfitters, I still go there for some of my core stuff, right? So I got my my Thermarest Uberlight. I got that from a major outfitter, right? I had some credit there, went in and bought this, and it worked out pretty well. But I knew what I wanted. I didn't go with any of their research. I did all my own research. But that, this is a good go-to for them. But the other type of gear that I might buy that comes from some of the stuff Dave's suggesting, the smaller groups, is, since I have been embracing and lightening my gear load, I'm kind of right on the edge of, I'm light but not ultra light, but my gear is relatively lightweight compared to when I first started, right? So one of the places that I will buy gear from, just straight up buy, is Justin's. I think it's Justin's Ultralight. This is a water bottle. Well, this is actually, he makes a water bottle holder that would fit on your shoulder strap, but this is actually a cell phone case that's put on there. I need to put it on there. Super light, real meshy. This one is actually, a lot of these lightweight gear manufacturers are what we call cottage manufacturers, right? So they make gear in very small batches, and you need to know what you're looking for. So you need to do some research on it. And it's rare that you can actually put your hands on it. So there's a little bit of a risk there. There's a few places where you can. There's a few places that which you can put your hands on tents and see what those look like, because that's another big one. But this one is so small that he only sells on Etsy. And if you want his stuff, you need to be there when he opens up a store, because I think it opens up at 10 o'clock on Thursdays when it puts his new stuff. Well, it turns out Etsy won't let you back order stuff. So when he's out, he closes the store. So, but that's kind of that falls into stuff I'm going to buy. It's from a small company, but I'm still going to do it. So that's another category of it. Another way of buying gear just outright is, I think the thrift store is a great place to go. I don't go there nearly as often, but the thrift store is good. One of the things about the thrift store, and the people that are professional thrift store shoppers know this, they need to go regularly. They go there like every single day. You know, if they're looking for that vintage leather jacket that they're going to sell for $300 on eBay, it can be done. They're going to find that in the thrift store and pay $23 for it. Well, I found a couple of things over the years. I found a pair of Mountain Hardwear hiking pants. I've gotten some wool socks, and I've gotten some cooking gear. So the thing is, you need to be consistent about going to the thrift store. If you got time and less money, that works really well. Something else that I bought at the thrift store that was really, really nice was my alternate, one of my base layers or a mid layer. I have a wool sweater, cashmere wool sweater. Great insulating layer. It's long sleeve. It fits under other layers. Fantastic. Works. And it's wool, so it insulates well if it's wet. Okay, worked really well. I think I paid maybe $5 for it, or a little bit of a hole in the elbow. That's all good, right? So that was definitely a cheap win. Eventually, I had a little bit more money, and I knew I was committed to this, and I broke down. Well, not broke down. It was actually a little bit more of a gift. I've got a Patagonia R1 hoodie. Oh my goodness, I love this. This is my favorite piece of clothing gear. It's got the grid micro fleece in there. It's a great insulating layer. It's got a zip hood that'll come up, cover your mouth if needed. 10 times the cost of that, right? It's real. Well, yeah, at least it's maybe even 20 times the cost of that other wool sweater. Does very similar things, similar weights. This is just a little bit more performance. That did not come from the thrift store. You'll find stuff at the discount store, so Target, Walmart, and sometimes even Costco. And a couple of things to be thinking about when you go to the big box stores is you really want to know what you're looking for, and I'd highly recommend avoiding the big three. So avoid the backpack, your sleeping bag, your pad, your cook gear. I would avoid some of that core stuff. That's going to probably cause you problems. You won't be happy with the stuff you're going to find at Walmart or Target. Costco's kind of interesting is that they regularly seasonally they put they're either Cool Max or wool socks on. They bring them in periodically. You can find down layer periodically in there, and you can also find carbon fiber trekking poles. Not a major brand, and they're not nearly as fancy. You're not going to say, "Hey, look at my cool black diamond poles." No, but they're definitely some good stuff. So Costco seems to be a little better on those. From Target and Walmart, I'd probably go poles, maybe cook gear, some clothing, maybe lighting, and something I have gotten from Walmart actually was I toyed around with dry ducks. Dry ducks is a form of rain gear. So these are some ultralight rain pants, super light. I got those from there. Turns out I never really used them, but it was something I was trying out with. So that was one of my department store ones. Amazon. What's really interesting about Amazon is years ago, first time I did a lecture similar to what we're talking about today, I did it with the Wilderness Basics course, the Sierra Club class. And I was very hesitant on ordering online. And what's not really interesting now is you have a really good opportunity to find things online and even through Amazon. So one of the biggest wins there is that BRS stove. those actually have proven really well that they're doing a good job. So much that I'm intrigued by their remote canister stove that would make a great winter cold season canister stove, because you can invert the canister. Cheap, light, good performance, but the quality is kind of hit and miss, right? But $18, $20 for a stove that's comparable to and perhaps lighter than the MSR Pocket Rocket. Wow, that's something to examine, right? Definitely something to try out. So that's the thing about Amazon and online, is you need to be cautious, right? So I would always recommend doing some research outside of Amazon. Don't take the reviews and recommendations from Amazon. Go look and find other reviews specifically about that BRS or about specifically a pad. It's not even a shout out, but someone good to look at for very specific gear recommendations, because that's not what I'm doing here. I'm being kind of general. Is Darwin on the Trail, is a thru hiker, and he has talked about some very, very specific lightweight pads. And I think he's got a pad, stove, and one other thing that he's talked about that are really affordable. So something to look at. Probably my favorite category is repurposing gear. And essentially what that means is taking something that wasn't intended for backpacking, and we're going to put it to use for backpacking. So this is where you start rummaging around the house, and this is where we're going to get creative. This also fits in with my gear hacks. So if you're going to take gear and make it do different things, you're going to modify it. This repurposing fits exactly into that category. So one of them might be finding. Walmart has this great. Well, that's great. Walmart has a grease pot. It's a thin wall aluminum pot that's intended to store your cooking grease. Now, this was never my household when I was growing up, but the neighbors across the street, they had a 5-pound coffee can they kept on the counter, and they would dump their bacon grease in there. And then they would scoop it out to cook with it. This is intended for people to do that with grease. Well, you cut the handle off, you make a lid for it. It actually makes a pretty lightweight, good pot. They have 2 different sizes. Check it out in the kitchen section of Walmart. So that's a repurpose. Let's make it work for backpacking. One that I kind of like, and this is very low tech, is Trader Joe's. We switched to Trader Joe's in our household years ago, and Trader Joe's kitchen towels. So these are just plain old kitchen towels. I think you get 3 in a bag for about $5, something like that. This is about all the size you need for a backcountry towel. So when I jump in a lake, and this is all I'm going to use to dry off, it's super absorbent, dirt cheap, right? Probably time to retire this one. It's getting a little threadbare, but not bad. So that's something to be thinking about. Clothing. This is a clothing thing that you might consider is a shirt. So generally, I hike now in a long sleeve shirt. It's got a collar on it. It works really well for sun. I have to put on less sunblock. Also, if bugs get back, I can flip up the collar and button the top button. But I sleep in a synthetic t-shirt, and sometimes I hike in a synthetic t-shirt. Generally not, though. Right? So here's a race shirt. This is not wonderful colors, great advertising on the back, but that's synthetic. So if you run a race or any kind of event, you're going to get this for free, just as long as it's a technical shirt, right? You don't want to do with that with a cotton. You know the mantra, cotton kills, right? Okay. And then one that fits in well with this is, of course, the wonderful water bottle, right? So smart water bottle or some other version. Trader Joe's has one. I don't even know. I found this in Vaughn's. But what's nice is some of these have the flip top lids, the 3/4 liter, and then the full liters are thread tops. Man, very, very light. Definitely lighter than a Nalgene, than the heavy wall Nalgene. So wonderful thing to take. Dirt cheap. You get water with it. If you're a real scrounge, you can go through the recycling bin and wash something out. I used to use Gatorade bottles because it was a wider mouth, but I found that these work well. And what's really nice is that these can fit in my bottle holder. I've ditched using a camelback or a bladder. We're about halfway through, so if you've got questions, throw them in the Q&A or in the chat, and I'll catch them at the end. So that's just a reminder, my reminder for me that I'm halfway through. So another one that's a repurpose is a spoon, right? So here I've got a titanium spoon that I bought. It actually was a long-handled titanium spoon. And the thing about this was longer, and I could have bought a new short-handled titanium spoon. I changed my cook kitchen. But what I ended up shortening it. I made a gear hack. But I've got a titanium spoon. This is versus a spoon for my kitchen. There might be an ounce difference. No one's going to notice this is missing from the kitchen. Actually, for my car camp gear, I got a set, or I got a set of 4 from the thrift store, and then put a little marker on here so they don't get mixed in with our regular household stuff. But right, this is going to do the same thing. Or you could even get a plastic spoon from fast food joint. So what's nice about that is it's really cheap. The plastic spoon's like even light. So. Okay, let's talk about making gear. That is an option. So if you've got the hacks for it, if you've got the skills, there's stuff you can sew. Dave, I know you've toyed around with sewing a tarp. You could do gaiters. There's a couple of different things that you could try sewing. Maybe food bags. You have to have some real special skills to sew a backpack. Oh, that's another one. A quilt. Quilt's another one, because there's been kits around, or some plans around for quilts instead of sleeping bags. One that isn't really gear, but it fits into being cheap, is food. So let's do some simple math. Let's take an $8, we'll do an average $8 prepackaged meal. 2 of those a day. You're going to figure out whatever we do for the snacks, breakfast and dinner, and do that times 7 days for a week in the Sierras. 150 bucks, right? That's some money you're spending there, and you may not like it, right? How many days can you eat chili con carne? Okay, well, I have 2 things I've done. So here's 5 days. I just did it in bulk. This is pasta and veggies and sauce, right? So I'll portion this up into 5 days and repackage it. But this is really cheap. This was probably $1.50 per serving. So smoking deal, if that. And I know what the sodium is. I know it has more veggies in there that I want. So I can dial it in the way I want to, or the way I need to. And I came across, I really, when I started backpacking, I've always been a bit of a foodie. And I realized that I didn't want to do a whole lot of food prep on the trail, but I like to do more food prep at home. So if you aren't ready to start making stuff and dehydrating it, because this is not for everybody, right? There's a step here, especially if you're new. Take a look at, there we go. This is a freezer bag cooking. It's since been renamed to trail cooking. Sarah Kirkendall really got me started on this one. And Sarah has a really good website and a series of books where she talks about how to take things from the grocery store, couscous, instant ramen, instant mashed potatoes, things like that, and use those as a base and then build off them with things from the grocery store and not actually have to dehydrate. So dehydrating for me is my advanced level of food prep. But that has brought my food costs down. And I kind of do, what I do now is I do maybe every other meal I'll do purchased, or every other dinner I'll do purchased. Everything else I'll make. A first aid kit is something that is a good one to make. What's nice is you can customize it to your skill level. Last week, Melody and I talked about first aid kits and how to customize them. So I think that's a really good thing. You can source it from things that are around the house, and maybe you can source it from some things at the work first aid kit if you need that one little weird thing. Other thing I've made is for my camp kitchen is this is a Ziploc threaded container. I want to say this is 2 cups if I remember right. Yeah, it looks like it is 2 cups. Made my own cozy for it, right? So now I rehydrate my meals in here. I used to rehydrate in freezer bags and a pocket, I have less waste, and now I can rehydrate in this and then and drink out of this one. So some Reflectix and a little bit of glue. I was able to make this not a hard project, something that's pretty simple to make. One more category to look at, and this is my catch-all. I'm just calling it acquire. So renting gear is something to consider. Definitely in our class, we encourage this. Renting can be tricky. What's nice though is you can get some specialized gear. So snowshoes are a great example. Maybe you can rent a 3-season tent if you're going to be doing some snow camping irregularly. A bear can is something that you can rent in just about every national park, right? They're going to be the big, nasty old Garcia bear cans. But that's okay, right? If you only need it for 5 days or a week, rent it. No need to buy it if you're short on money. If you want to, last year I decided I had several $100s burning a hole in my pocket. Don't tell Jill. Don't tell my wife. But I bought a carbon fiber beer can. So here I went the opposite extreme of it, but I took some time before doing that. Borrowing gear is another one, right? Look for somebody it's a backpacker. So borrowing a bear can might be another good one. I hang on to my old gear. So I've got my old heavy Osprey pack. And when I pulled this out of the garage, I thought there was actually something still in it. No, it was empty. It's just big and heavy. I hang on to that. I have my old 30-degree sleeping bag that's kind of beat down a little bit. No, it's a 20-degree sleeping bag, and it's maybe rated to 30 now because it's aged out. And I'll let my friends borrow that. So I have the big 3, right? So I've got an extra pad. I've got extra stuff, some of the core things for them to borrow. So that's something to consider. And because I am a scrounge, I have found gear. I've found things that have worked really well for me. So 2 of them that I've found is this North Face hat. Found it on a bus in Mammoth Mountain. I'm on the backseat of the bus. I'm like, hey, perfectly good hat. Took it home, washed it. It's my go-to hat. It's the perfect weight I always have a warm head, so this is a great weight. Cost me nothing. Now, eventually, I wanted a backup one, so I've got this awesome windstopper hat. Has ear flaps, right? This is great for super cold or if it's going to be really windy. Well, this one cost me real money. The other one didn't. The other one is a knife, right? So you might find a knife. You might have one around the house. Here, check this one out. This is a $150, $200 Benchmade pocket knife. Gorgeous knife. I found it. Now, I actually found it in Mount Laguna. So if you lost an expensive Benchmade knife in the mountains, forget you. You don't get it back. You're a jerk for sticking it in the tree. So I pulled it out of the tree, and I'm like, it's mine now. This is actually too big for me to take on the trail. So, I use a smaller pocket knife. So you may even have one of these at home. So you don't need much of a knife. So we don't need we don't need Bear Grylls. We don't need Crocodile Dundee on the trail. So a couple of thoughts kind of as I wrap this up is, the cheapest and the lightest gear. So this applies to penny pinchers and it applies to lightweight people. That cheapest and lightest gear is the stuff that stays at the store. If you don't bring it along, if you can do with less, you're gonna have a fatter paycheck at the end of the week. I think it's okay too to give yourself permission to change your gear. So, if you start off, you're like, this is what Dan has. This is what I need. Or, I saw Dave has this. This is really cool. I need to go spend the real coin on a pad. Don't do that, right? Because it's okay to have multiple iterations of your gear. My kitchen has changed probably 6 times in 6 years. So I keep changing my camp kitchen. I've changed my pad. I've gone through maybe 4 different tents, maybe more. But I keep changing and upgrading or kind of deciding what fits my needs. So it's the other thing I found is that I can trade. There's a trade-off between experience and the amount of gear I bring. Right. So I can bring less gear because I have more experience. If you're new to the game, you won't have nearly as much experience, so you're going to need to be able to bring. You're going to have to bring a little bit more gear. The other thing is that there's another direct trade-off between weight and cost, right? So to save 8 ounces, 6 ounces on this pad, which was pretty significant for me to save 8 ounces. I think it was about 8 ounces I saved on this one, maybe even more. It cost me some real money. So that was a big deal. Well, if I didn't have as much money, I could get away with cheaper gear, but it's going to be heavier. So that's the trade-off. So know that your pack weight will not be the same as mine or someone else that has committed to more costs on that one. And then lastly, I think it's a good idea to just go slow with your gear, right? Because what you start off with now is not what you're going to end up with. You kind of think, I want to buy the best first. It's okay. You can, I like Dave's comment, you can use the older gear for training hikes, right? Okay, I like that one too. Okay, if anybody has any, let me take a look at the Q&A of the chat, see if there's anything that's anything that's valuable. So Dave asked the question, why is a cozy advantageous? What's the benefit of using this one? So I am using this freezer bag cooking methodology, which the methodology is don't cook on the trail, cook at home. All you're doing is rehydrating. So what if I'm going to take instant rice, I'm going to put it in here, add hot water, close it up, and then it's going to cook or steep for 10 minutes or so. Instant oatmeal is really instant. But there's other things. My pasta is going to take 5 to 10 minutes to rehydrate in hot water. So the cozy holds in the heat, and it really helps on that one. If you use a cozy bag, that also works. It does the same thing. What I have found, and this is one of the things I'm doing more with less, is I no longer bring a cup. So I'll eat my pasta, I'll clean it out, drink that water, which I'm getting used to. And then I'm using this for my tea or hot cocoa or whatever else I'm drinking, hot toddy, whatever I'm drinking in here. Right? So I've done 2 things with that one. And let me take one more look at the chat. I was kind of thinking this might happen. I'm trying to juggle 2 things with her. Smaller companies. The thing about, one other thing about smart water bottles to keep in mind is they are prone to deforming with hot water, right? So I only put cold water in here or cold drinks in here. I won't put cold water. So a great hack especially for cold people is to put hot water. I'm going to take this off camera. Put hot water, just off boiling water, into a Nalgene, tighten it up, and put it in the bottom of your sleeping bag. It's a hot water bottle, right? It's great. And it will keep your feet warm, and it'll go for sometimes 4 hours longer, maybe longer. That'll generate some heat. That's wonderful. Don't put boiling or nearly boiling hot water in this one. It will warp this and destroy this. It will probably leak from that one. So when I go, if I'm going to go in the snow, I will bring one of these, and I will bring a Nalgene for extra hot water. So, there's that. Okay. Actually, the timing worked out pretty good anyway. So a good reminder, I will have this up on YouTube tonight or tomorrow, and you're watching it so that you know that. But also, all the other episodes are all on YouTube on the Wednesday Wind Down with Dan channel. Next week, we're going to be talking about desert travel, how to plan a trip to the Grand Canyon. So there's some considerations, right? There's permits, there's water. Do I have to carry all my water? Do I have to carry 4 days worth of water? Wow, good things to find out. So my guest I'm going to have on next week has done a tremendous amount of desert travel, done a tremendous amount of Grand Canyon backpacking and hiking. So Doug Grover is going to join me next week, and we're going to discuss Grand Canyon and some considerations when you're planning a trip. So thank you all for coming. We will see you all next week. Have a great week, everybody.